let's start from the beginning. Tell us what the club is all about, its beginnings, and the purpose of it, and how it evolved.
It actually evolved in with Mike Mazurki back at the Elks Lodge in California. And the guys, Mike Mazurki was a famous actor. If you Google him, he's been in over 200 films, many classic John Wayne films. Was also a big time wrestler as far as making dollars a main event attraction. And Mike made a lot of money. So he was a very generous and philanthropic type man. So he would have gatherings and he'd get together and a bunch of the guys would come, Carl Lauer and Red Bastien and different guys from back then would gather, and they were the young guys kind of then. And so they would, Mike would ask which one of the boys, how many of the boys do we have that are hurting, that need a hand up? And so guys would bring reports back and they'd discuss it. And so then they would send like Carl and Red and Mike LaBelle and different guys like that out with envelopes of money to hand to these different guys that were down on their financial fortune, on their financial luck, in search of their fortune in the wrestling industry. So that's how it started in 1965. Since then, it's morphed. We've had over 8,000 members. We currently have about 1,300 active members. We've, when I took over, in 2014, we were down to about 700 active members. So we've almost doubled our membership, doubled the revenue intake, and doubled the amount of money that we give out.
Wow.
We have people almost every day filling out benevolent requests. They can go to the Cauliflower Alley Club website, and all you have to do is if you've made a full-time living in the wrestling industry, whether you were a guy behind the scenes working for the wrestling business, such as yourself, whether it was a referee who's everybody's important in the industry, from the timekeeper to everybody. I mean, everybody's important to make this show what it has to be. And we feel, as a board at the Cauliflower Alley Club, and just carrying on from what the old timers, sometimes I don't like that word because I'm an old timer now.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But
how about seasoned veterans?
Seasoned vets, yeah.
I like that.
Seasoned vets would carry on. And so I learned from like the Carl Lauers and the Nick Bockwinkel's and the Red Bastiens. Those guys taught me so much about, how to run the club and the purpose of the club. Our mission statement is, to help those that have fallen on financial hard times, that made a living in the industry for 3 years or more. And, we've helped. There are people that we can name their names, although we keep them anonymous unless they say, because a lot of people are very shy about getting help. So, and sometimes you almost have to nudge them, hey, I heard I'll make a phone call, a couple phone calls a week. I heard through the grapevine that, I'll call them up, see how they're doing first and see if they offer anything, but then I'll kind of get around to the point, if let's say it was, hey, Sean, I just heard a rumor that Sean Moody was having a little bit of a challenge right now, and I want you to know there's nothing wrong with that. We all go through that, and that's what the Cauliflower Alley Club is for. And if you'd be so kind as to fill out a benevolent request, I'll see if we can help you out. And we won't mention your name unless you want it mentioned. And fortunately, we've had guys like Kamala, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Just recently, Rip Oliver was about to lose all of his property. And the Cauliflower Alley Club paid all of his back taxes so that he would keep his property and be able to give it to his children. And it made his life before he passed. That's Billy Jack Haynes, who really pushed for that. And, Billy's had kind of a checkered past, and, he'd be the first one to tell you that. He's really turned into a stand-up guy as far as I'm concerned. And he really went to bat for Rip, and so we helped Rip, saved his property, saved lots of people's houses and their properties, and gone way out of the way. One of my favorite stories, I look up and see him here, is Brickhouse Brown. Um, I got a call from Rocky Johnson, my dear friend Rocky, who I miss so bad. He died January 15th of this year. And Rocky said, "Hey, Brian, you know Brickhouse Brown?" And I said, "I've heard of him, and I know that actually that he broke in Florida with Hiro Matsuda, the same person that I broke in with. But we just never crossed paths in the same territories." And he said, "Well, he's got cancer. His wife left him, and he's really down. Would you mind giving him a call?" And so I called him. And God, we became just like the best of friends. And we got him. He couldn't get on disability. He was trying, and Bruce Tharp, one of our attorneys, helped him find a good disability attorney. We then, he hadn't had a cancer screening. They were just giving him pain pills because he had no insurance. It was the saddest thing. And I couldn't believe this was happening in America. And so we got him sent him to one doctor, and he calls me and he said, "Brian, I went to the doctor. I can't believe you guys paid $500 and something for the doctor." And I'm telling him, don't worry, because he's almost in tears over the $500. I said, "We have very generous members. They're wonderful. You just, if you get time, thank the members. If you feel like it, if you don't, it's okay." And the doctor wanted to actually remove his testicles and told him he had stage 4 cancer. So he's freaking out because the doctor wanted him to go to the hospital the very next night and have his testicles removed. And I said, no, get another opinion. And he's, "Oh, no, I can't spend another $500. I really don't want to lose my testicles, but go to another doctor. But this time we're going to get you to the doctor." And so I called Bruce and say, "Hey, you know anybody in the area?" And he checks around. We find him a good doctor, and the doctor says, "No, we don't have to remove his testicles." They went up. Yes, they confirmed stage 4 cancer. So we got him chemo and radiation. We paid for that right away. Then the disability came in, just in the timing worked out good. He started getting a check where he could at least pay for his groceries and his medical bills and things like that. And he lived another 6-8 months that he would have never lived. But had he known about the Cauliflower Alley Club, Sean, he would be alive today. Yeah. That's, guys have to realize that we're here for them. Yeah. We're here for the guys.
What are some of the stories, though, that stand out to you? You mentioned Brickhouse. What are some of the other stories that really stand out to you that guys that were in desperate need, that you guys were able to come and help them out and improve their lives?
Well, the people that I can speak of, for example, Kamala owed $13,000 and was about to have his house taken right from him. And this was not that long ago. So, because in Mississippi, even though you can do away with your homestead, do away with your taxes, no more property taxes, you have a zero homestead exemption after you're 65. I mean, 100% home exemption, which creates a zero tax liability at the age of 65. But if you owe any state taxes, you can't file for that exemption. So he owed, $3,000-4,000 that he couldn't pay in the taxes from his wrestling days, state taxes. And so we paid those, and then we raised enough money to pay off all of his property taxes. So now him and his wife fill out a simple form, and they have no more property taxes. So we were able to save the Kamala family's home. Same thing with Mr. Wonderful. Paul Warndorf had $10,000 that he owed in arrears. That was taken care of, and Paul will have his home for the rest of his life now, because they have the same issue, the same system in Georgia now. So he owes no money to the state. His property taxes are paid off. As long as they fill out the form each year, they have no tax liability for their homestead.
Wow, that's fantastic. And folks, I just want to again say that you need to realize that some of these guys, some of the greatest superstars to step into a ring, they may have made some money back then, but a lot of them, it wasn't like millions of dollars that they could, or they didn't have 401ks. And if there's anything you can do, if you can contribute, I'm sure if it was $5, $10, it's and as Brian's saying, this is what 99% of all of the proceeds go to help these guys out. And if you want to feel like that you're a part of something and part of helping these guys that entertained you so much over the years, and this is going to keep moving forward. You're going to see a lot of wrestlers who are going to need help in the coming years, because even though we're seeing some great strides made as far as the guys getting contracts now, and there's other organizations. Look what we're going through right now. And so if you can do it, please do it. Tell me about the event, though. Like I said, I mentioned Alfred used to love to go to that event, and he would just talk. He would get emotional talking about seeing these guys receive awards, and how much it means to them. I mean, certainly it's got to be as big an honor as being elected into the inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame for some of these people, because we're talking the entire industry.
Right, and you're basically picked by your peers. So
Yeah.
what greater honor? I mean, it's not Vince choosing you. It's or Triple H or however their system is right there. It's you're actually being voted in by your peers, and they are very humbled. And when you mention Lord Alfred Hayes, one of the greatest, kindest souls on earth, he actually out of his clever talk, his clever speech,
Yeah.
he said in one of our matches when we just started the little mask switcheroo gimmick before we had the mask confusion name, Lord Alfred Hayes said, I believe that's a bit of mass confusion, British accent. And so we started calling it mass confusion because of Lord Alfred Hayes. So, just so many people go there, young, old. I say, it's where the future, the current, and the older generation all meet together and converge, and we're like just one heartbeat. Young, middle-aged, older, we all converge together. So there's something from everybody, whether you're 18 or 88. You're there, and everybody gets to be friends there. It's like a big homecoming, a big reunion. We sell out with 750 seats. That's all we will hold, although we'll have 3,000 people through the event. We only allow 750 to actually purchase the reunion tickets, and only have 60 rooms left. So, and we've got 4 months to go, 5 months to go.
And besides the dinner and the award ceremony, other events going on around it with people getting the opportunity to meet some of these stars of yesterday, and tell me about what else goes on besides that event where the awards are handed out.
Well, we have a hospitality room, and it has some of the greatest photos from, you go back and look at the Swedish Angel and all these different wrestlers. I mean, they have pictures from the very, very beginning, and the boards are alternated every year, but they have the original pictures that they've collected for years and years and years, and they stay in our storage. We bring everything out for the reunions in Vegas at the Gold Coast Hotel and Casino, and so there's so much nostalgia. And then we have cribbage tournaments, and Bob Orton Jr. is a funny story. He worked and worked and worked to become the until he finally won the cribbage champion, and he thought he was saying, well, don't I get to keep the pot? And his heart seemed broken when he got a trophy instead of the pot, because it's a $10 buy-in, and Bob thought he was going to win $100 or $500 or whatever it was. And he was the first guy that ever said that, but he's going to be back this year he said, you know what, Brian, that trophy meant a lot more than money. I don't know why I said that. And so he kind of humbled himself by saying that. And so he'll be there. He's looking really forward to being there. And, how often do you get to see these legends, these guys, that really paved the way? And I was always taught when I started in the business with Buddy Colt and the Briscoes and Hiro Matsuda, always respect, the generation before you, which I always did. I got to work with guys that were just leaving, the Angelo Paffos and I'm trying to think of the guy because Angelo and the Vachons, Maurice.
Oh yeah, the Vachons, yeah, and I mean so many others too. Right. That you were like that next generation.
Yeah, so I got to wrestle some of their last matches. Yeah. Even Bob Orton Sr., I think I had his last match with them. It's just great, and I always had such respect for them. Just wow, I can't even believe that I'm getting in the ring with these guys. Reggie Parks, Wonderful, wonderful guys that really paved the way. Without those guys, we would have never had this business.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take you back a little bit because, you look at the history, and that's what I think that part of this organization reminds people, because the business has evolved. It is very different today than it was, and people can debate all day long whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we can never forget how this business came to be, from the beginnings of these guys working in these territories and getting in cars and traveling across the country. Uh, and you were part of this. You were real young then when it was all really starting to happen. But was that always important to you to never forget, and the debt that you owe these veterans that took you under their wing?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've always been a giver, and uh, I've I've taken a lot of knowledge. That's what I appreciate, and the wisdom. I pray for wisdom every day. I think there's nothing more important than wisdom, because when you gain wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, you have a different perspective on everything, and you can kind of realize why this is happening and for what reason, and what your purpose in life is. And my purpose in life is to help the people that helped me to not have to worry about paying my light bill or my rent. And because of these people, whether I was on the card with them or not, they were part of this wonderful industry that I've been a part of, and I'm still a part of, and will be a part of as far as I'm concerned until I die. And it's the greatest industry in the world. And so it's just such an honor for me to to be able to say that I'm part of the Cauliflower Alley Club. And being an all volunteer organization, one of the hardest things to do, Sean, is to keep everybody together. So there's a lot of people that say they want to do it, but when they get into the board and get on the executive board or the advisory board, and they realize that it's work, you gotta pick the ones that are really going to work, and not complain. Sincere desire to do that. And we've assembled such a wonderful team. Ron Hutchison, who is in Canada, our Canadian ambassador, Royal Duncan from Royal Publishing, Darlene Kress, who has been a tremendous treasure. She took over for Dean Silverstone, who recently passed away. Dean gave 27 years of his life. He wrote a book called I Ain't No Pig Farmer. Not the most glorious title, but the context of the book was fabulous. I never realized that I had never wrestled in Portland. So what did we have, 32 territories or 34 territories at one time, something like that?
Yeah.
And I was blessed to see the evolution of the business to go to TBS in 1984. And we started Tito Santana, Paul Orndorff, Tony Atlas, Tommy Rich. We started going to Wheeling, West Virginia, and Columbus, Ohio. And people saw the power of cable television. So Vince McMahon Sr. saw the power of cable television, but he was so loyal to the NWA that he would never go into their territories. But he explained everything to Junior, and Junior's a quick study, and Junior realized it as well. And I knew shortly after Senior died, which was a very sad time, he actually wanted me to be B. Brian Blair rather than Brian Blair. He said, when you come back up, I want you to be B. Brian Blair. I know B's your nickname. And so there's a lot of Brian Blairs, Brian, but you're going to be the only B. Brian Blair. And I said, yes, sir, Mr. McMahon, whatever you want.
Wow.
Grateful. And so I got to.
It stuck.
I got to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, boy, everybody knows that name.
Stories behind it. And I made good money, and fortunately made good investments, and the rest was good. I was opening match at times, and I was main event at other times. I worked all over the card, and believe me, one of the things I can't stand is when people downgrade an opening match or something, that's one of the most important matches on the card because it sets the tone. It's a package for everybody. People use the word enhancement talent. Well, in Florida, I've been the Florida heavyweight champion 2 times. I worked with the world champions, with Flair many a times, with been main event all over for WWE, WWF, WWE. And been in the middle of the card. Tito Santana and I got Orndorff ready for WrestleMania 1. And that was our job, just to make Orndorff the top heel. And you had to know where your place is in your pecking order. And, if you work hard enough, sooner you get your break and you get your breadcrumbs. And, there's only a few Hulk Hogans and a few Rocks and a few Austins and so on, and Undertakers, and whom are all my good friends. As far as I know, I don't have any enemies in the business. I just love all the boys and know all the boys. They're great people.
You talk about that great career, Brian, and it really was incredible. But most people remember your days with the WWF as the Killer Bees. And it was during an era there, and not only was I often refer to it as the golden era, but where tag teams were as on the same level with singles competition. I mean, we had just as many tag teams, I think, and they were really popular. What was it about that period of time that people love tag teams so much? Because we've never seen it again, and it's rare now that you see a tag team that sticks around and people remember and the competition is fierce. What was it about that time?
Well, it's a great question. I'll tell you why that's such a great question, Sean, is because when I left the second time to come back to Florida in '84 to become the Florida heavyweight champion for the second time, Vince wanted to bring me back to work for the Intercontinental title. That was the plan. And then I get a call from Terry Bollea from Hulkster, and he says, "Hey, Brian, Vince has a great idea." He said, "I really like it. I think it's going to be huge." He said he wants to create a tag team division that is second to none. And I thought about you. He said, "I know you want to come back as a single, but I think there's a guy I know, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. Do you know Jim?" And I said, "Only from the wrestling magazines, from wrestling talk, wrestling speak." And of course, I heard he was a nice guy, Greg Gagne, High Flyers. And he said, "Oh, I think because Vince had just robbed Terry from Vern." And if you know the story, Vince offered Vern a great deal. Greg would have never had to work a day in his life, but Vern said, "No, I'm going to do it on my own." Wasn't that light, but lo and behold, he got Mr. Perfect, he got Bobby the Brain, he got just robbed exactly
after another. Yeah,
his dad knew the deal. Vince caught on. Vince knew the deal. Vince is a very, very bright man. Very bright man. When he gets focused and on something, he had that idea for that tag team division, and so it was the Hart Foundation. It was just the
demolition. God, you can just go on and on.
We were running 3 towns a night.
Yeah.
So hot that we were running 3 towns a night, and so we call it the A, B, and C, based on your bookings. You know whether you were on the A, B, or C. But if you're on the C team, you'd always be main event wherever you went.
Yeah.
If you're on the B team, you'd be right up around the semi-mains and stuff. And then if you were on the A team, you'd be in the middle of the card. So, but it was all good because basically Vince had figured out a pay scale that he figured everybody would be happy with. And then guys slowly started getting agents and making better decisions, which was great. I remember when Jesse wanted to start a union, Jesse Ventura. He came to me and wanted to start a union. And I said, "Jesse, I don't think that's going to work, brother," because he was my roommate in Kansas City we had adjoining apartments for the Central States for Geigo, O'Connor, and Harley Race, and we sold out the Coliseum when we were young and green. Great story, but I won't bore you with it right now. But we sold out the Coliseum for the first time in a year, and it was just a tremendous feeling as a green kid. And Jesse and I would drive down the road, and we'd talk and talk and talk. And of course, Jesse would talk 90% of the time, and I'd listen.
Yeah. You always have a great conversation with Jesse as long as you let Jesse talk about Jesse.
And rock like this, you know, that's it, right?
Yeah.
So when he came, I said, unless you get Hogan and Macho and everybody, you know, union's not going to work. He said, yeah, we can get enough guys. Hogan and Macho can't draw a crowd by themselves. I said, that's true, Jesse, but you can put Hogan and Macho and get enough of the other guys that don't want to do the union deal. I mean, you've got to get everybody on board, and it shouldn't be you organizing it. It should be a third party, because you're going to get heat. Screw it. Well, then Brunzell jumped on the train, and a couple others jumped on the train, and they wound up with 2 weeks off with no pay.